والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. سبحانك لا فهم لنا إلا ما فهمتنا إنك أنت الجواد الكريم. وقل رب زدني علما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. الطلاق مرتان فامساك بمعروف أو تسريع بإحسان ولا يحل لكم أن تأخذوا مما آتيتموهن شيئا إلا أن يخافا ألا يقيما حدود الله فإن خفتم ألا يقيما حدود الله فلا جناح عليهما فيما افتدت به تلك حدود الله فلا تعتدوها ومن يتعد حدود الله فأولئك هم الظالمون. صدق الله مولانا العظيم. So continuing with the discourse of talaq, Allah protect us all from having to use it. There's some, we always say that there's, we learn the ahkam of Quran and Sunnah to make amal on it. But some of the ahkam we learn so that we don't make amal on it. And talaq is one of those. So it's a necessity, but as Nabi alayhi salam said, أبغض الحلال إلى الله الطلاق. It's halal, but it is a disliked halal. So how is it halal and disliked? Well, because it's halal because, as we're going to see, there's certain circumstances where there's no way out, and that way out is necessary in some instances. However, because of the, various consequences, for the two individuals, they say that, a person who has gone through the process of talaq, it produces a psychological, wound that actually never heals. So that's one thing. And then the children, obviously, it's a huge impact. And then on the relationships and the relations of both sides. So it is halal because there's a necessity at times. However, it is a dire necessity, so it needs to have dire circumstances, which we're going to talk about a little later. So we talked about the basic tafsir of those ayats, or the basic translation of the ayat yesterday, or day before yesterday. It was yesterday, I believe yesterday. So today we want to go into a little bit of detail. So number one, we also mentioned that talaq is a kind, or a marriage itself is a kind of transaction. However, it's a very unique transaction. It's not like, buying and selling. Okay, we contract, immediately there's a contract, and if we want to end the contract, we dissolve it. It's very simple. This, however, there's a huge difference between this type of contract, the contract of nikah, and buying and selling of commodities. We're talking about human beings, and there we're talking about simply commodities. So there's a huge difference. Also, the fact that nikah is a contract which the whole society starts from that contract. Man and wife, that's where the whole society begins with. So that relationship is, the sanctity of that relationship and the importance of that relationship is like none other. So it all begins there. So we have the aspect of sunnah, the aspect of ibadah, of ubudiyah. And of course, we have that aspect in all transactions. But here, that dimension of the contract is much more overpowering and much more overarching and overriding. And also, general contracts, anybody can contract, even with non-Muslims or whatever. Any man, any woman. But in this contract, we have the concept of maharim. So we have to learn who are the people that we can actually have this contract with. Not just any man, just any woman. There is restrictions, as is going to be mentioned, later on, when the maharim are mentioned in Surah An-Nisa. Also, for this contract to take place, we have to have witnesses. This is not the case in other contracts. Other contracts, if you want to annul that contract, if there's a dispute, then you need witnesses. However, the contract of nikah, therefore the nikah sir, some secret marriage and nobody knows except the man and the woman, this is not a nikah in Islam. There has to be two witnesses, Muslim, baligh witnesses. Okay? And second thing, or another aspect of this contract is that this contract is a lifelong contract. You know, in the Christian tradition, they have this thing, they said, until death do us apart. Now, in the Christian tradition also, they don't even, for example, the staunch Christians, the Catholics, for example, they don't allow, traditionally, they don't allow talaq, period. I mean, once you're in this bind, that's it. And in some cultures, it's even, you know, after death also. Like in the Hindu culture, it's like a continuous contract that even after death, and they used to have this practice that when the man was cremated, the woman would be put on top of the man and cremated along with her, alive. I mean, so Islam is neither that side nor that side. It's not just, you know, it's our thing, let us do what we want to do, however and whenever and whoever and however. No. At the same time, it is not that binding contract that there's no way out, period, which leaves no light at the end of a tunnel in a very straightened relationship. So it's between that. So yes, it's a lifelong contract unless there's unreconcilable differences. Another thing about talaq is that if disagreement comes up, every effort has to be made to try and resolve it. We don't resolve to talaq unless that's the last straw. So first of all, the man and the woman should try and sort things out. If they can't do that on their own, then they have hakaman bainahu wa bainaha. So we make a committee, or we make, you know, some representatives from the man's side, from the women's side, so that they could actually negotiate on behalf of the man and woman. So even that, you know, takes place. And then, if that fails, then of course, as we mentioned, there is certain circumstances where there's just no compatibility. I mean, you know, this marriage has become, it's supposed to be for the sake of, you know, mercy and mutual cooperation and a beautiful relationship that's supposed to be, you know, like a garden of flowers, and it becomes, you know, like a pit of hell. So we're losing the whole objective here. So in that case, it's better for them to part ways. But after all other, you know, doors or options, you know, have failed, and also that option is in the hand of the men, as we mentioned, you know, yesterday perhaps, that women, they are overpowered by emotion. Man is supposed to be, you know, overpowering his emotion through his, you know, intellectual, you know, capacity. And so if it was placed in the hands of the women as well as the hands of the man, then probably we'd be having a lot more talaq than, you know, we would want to be having. And however, the man is supposed to, you know, be very careful in his and judicial in his use of this option. However, the woman does have a way out. For example, the man is just going to be stubborn and it's not working, so there's a way out, but that's going to be done through the court and through a qadi, you know, who has duly been appointed by the Islamic court. So there is a way out for her as well. It's not like, you know, the man has total authority and she has none whatsoever. Also, you cannot just pronounce, this is very important, and brothers pay very close attention to this, some of us don't know about this. You can't just, you know, so talaq, you can't just, you know, you're angry with your wife and just send a talaq. So number one, if you're angry, you're not supposed to even think about talaq, you know. Hold on, relax, and probably things are going to chill out. Okay. Secondly, if the woman is in the state of menses, which sometimes the men get, you know, disgruntled during that, you know, period of time, also talaq is totally forbidden in this period of time. Thirdly, if the man has had intimate relationships with his wife in this period of cleanliness, he is also not allowed to give talaq at that point until she finishes that period and then goes through another menstrual period and then comes into another cleanly period. And by that time, if he hasn't cooled down, then there's really some heavy issue. So now, you know, it looks like it's just not going to work. So So the whole overall and arching concept is that talaq is, as Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned, abghad al-halal. It is halal, but it is very disliked, and it's only to be resorted to in the most severe of circumstances. But the last one little point, little patience here, is that we have the option, or the talaq, as it's mentioned in the very beginning of the ayat, at-talaqu marratan. Talaq is 2 talaqs. In other words, the talaq where the marriage is not totally annulled is 2 talaqs. And this is to be given once. And what we call the sunnat way of talaq is to pronounce 1 talaq and 1 talaq alone. until the next period, and then if necessary, you can pronounce another talaq. We have another thing which we call ahsan talaq, and that is to give one talaq and let the iddat finish. When the iddat finish, now the marriage is over. However, the option to return with a new marriage is left open. If 3 is pronounced, and we're going to talk about a little bit later, if you pronounce them all 1 time and 3 times, they all are considered pronounced. The marriage is over, but it is bid'ah and it is haram and it is a very severe sin that you have done. However, they have taken place. So now there's no option, to go back, except as we're going to explain later on. So the best way is, if there's no way out, then the best thing is to pronounce 1 talaq, let the iddat finish, and then if sometime in the future they want to reconcile and get the option is there. This is also, option is available if 2 talaqs. If 3, that's it, and it's over. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq. We have a few more points, inshallah, we'll be talking in the next day or 2. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.